And good evening, everybody. Welcome aboard. It's time for another edition of Syracuse Basketball Postgame presented by our friends at Krause Health. And we have a happy recap for you after a couple of struggles on the Syracuse basketball front, a loss to North Carolina, a back-and-forth game in the second half that eventually goes the Tar Heels' way. Pittsburgh in no way was a back-and-forth game. They dropped the hammer in the second half on the Orange last time around, scoring 64 second-half points on the way to a 20-point win. But tonight, Syracuse turned the tables and beat Miami 83-57 at the Carrier Dome. My friend and colleague Mike Curtis joins me here on the show. Long day for Mike. He's been grinding today, covered the Syracuse women's basketball team earlier today, and a very impressive win themselves over North Carolina, and they get set for number one Louisville Thursday night, so we'll look forward to that. But, Mike, this was a relief for the team. This was a relief for the fans, and it was especially exciting for a large faction of the fan base that was looking for some lineup changes, and they got them in this game tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. This game was kind of similar to, like you said, the SU women's game. Earlier today, North Carolina, they came back in the fourth quarter, but also from Sunday's game against Miami, where the Orange just dismantled the Hurricanes. But yeah, tonight was the win that Syracuse needed. They needed to get this win after that last loss. They came out and they got down 11-2, and then we saw a completely different team after that as soon as Kadari Richmond and Jesse Edwards came in the game.
A 23-3 run at that point for Syracuse, took full control and goes on to the win. And you said it right there, Mike. Kadari Richmond, Joe Girard in the backcourt. Now, Buddy Boeheim ends up leading Syracuse along with Joe with 23 points. It's not like Buddy was cast aside. But Jim Boeheim used some of the more unique lineups he's had to use this year. Jesse Edwards gave Syracuse some quality minutes out there, and it was a big, big difference for the Orange. Now, is this sustainable against, say, Virginia Tech on Saturday, against Virginia after that, and against some of the bigger, more physical lineups in the ACC? I guess we'll find out as we go. But, Mike, at least they have this kind of banked in their head now, that they can put that lineup out there. They can use it. Jesse Edwards, what we've heard from Jim all along is he's just not ready. He's just not ready. He looked ready tonight, at least ready to give you a handful of quality minutes, and he ends up playing a lot more than that. And Syracuse needed it because Marek Dolezaj got into foul trouble. Jesse had to come in and supplant him, and now you got a situation where Jesse can play the center. Marek went back to his natural position at forward. Kadari was out there facilitating on offense. He ends up with 8 assists on the night. And, Mike, Joe Girard is just a different player when he's coming off the ball, when he doesn't have to create his own shot, when he doesn't have as many defenders in his face naturally with him coming up with the ball. He just had a different demeanor and a confidence out there. He really had the eye of the tiger. And Joe he's got some swagger when he could start hitting some of those shots, and you saw it build through the game.
Absolutely. We saw a completely different Joe Girard this game. He was totally locked in. You could see it as soon as that first mid-range jumper went down, where he banked it off the glass, that he was pretty much looking to score from then on out. And he kind of got that a couple times throughout the game, just pump faking really quick and then taking that mid-range jumper. And once he got that mid-range jumper to go through, his shots from three-point land were just falling. And you could tell specifically on one three-pointer where he came down, shot the ball probably 3 feet from beyond the arc, and it just splashed in.
Joe can hit it from anywhere on the floor when he's feeling it. He took a couple of no, yes threes in this game. And interesting revelation after the game, Mike, as it turns out, in Syracuse's second COVID-related pause, both Joe Girard and Buddy Boeheim did have COVID-19. Now, I don't know if Buddy's symptoms were as bad as Joe's, but Joe revealed in the postgame press conference that he had COVID-19. He was symptomatic, and he was sick. He said he had a bad sore throat. He lost taste. He lost smell. He was tired, fatigued. You know, some of the typical symptoms we hear. Joe has an underlying condition. He has asthma as well. He got through it okay. He said he's just starting to kind of shake it off now. He can still feel it, but even through that out there, he scores 23 points and leads this team out there and looks like a more confident player. But, boy, it was interesting to hear those guys actually had it. And, you know, look, getting medical information from a college team, particularly a private school, is not always something you're going to get. These things tend to come out afterwards, but that's a pretty big revelation there that in that second pause, they actually had it. And you cover the women's team, Mike. There were some positive cases within the women's team. We don't know who exactly at this point. They're out 28 days. Syracuse's pause was a little shorter than that, though they lost a few games in that stretch, and they're just starting to get into a rhythm of normal practice game kind of thing.
Yeah, I think it just goes to show how detrimental the coronavirus has been on this college basketball season. I mean, games are getting rescheduled left and right every day. Teams are getting notified within days, probably a couple days, that they're going to play a different team or that they're not going to play the team they were supposed to play. But yeah, it's interesting to see how Joe and Buddy kind of rebounded considering the fact that they had COVID. Now, will we see them keep up some type of consistency with their shot going forward? I think that's the hope for Syracuse, but it was definitely good to see Joe and Buddy get in the groove tonight.
Let's throw some numbers at you from this one. Then Mike and I will respond to you guys in the comments. Appreciate you checking in from wherever you are out there tonight on this Tuesday evening. So Syracuse shot 32 of 61. That's 52%, a great shooting percentage for the Orange, whereas Miami shot 39% on the day. Miami was terrible from three-point range, 4 of 25. That's 16%. Syracuse a lot better than the 3 of 22 they were against Pittsburgh, 10 of 25 tonight. That's 40%. On the rebounding edge, Syracuse needed this, Mike, got back at it, winning the rebounding battle 34-33. 27 of those came on the defensive end. So on the turnover front, Miami turned the ball over 17 times in this game, and Syracuse took advantage of that. 27 points off turnovers, a big number for the Orange. A couple other key stats from a team standpoint. Syracuse assisted on 19 baskets. They moved the ball a lot better in this game than they had in previous games, particularly the Pittsburgh game. So points in the paint also in favor of Syracuse, 32-28. Looking at a couple individual numbers, we mentioned a couple, Joe Girard and Buddy Boeheim, both lead Syracuse with 23 points on the night. Girard, 5 of 9 from three-point range. Boeheim, 4 of 8 from three-point range. They both wake up from a real snooze in the three-point department in the last 4 games, and now we're starting to find out maybe why they were struggling so much there. Quincy Guerrier with 18 points on the night and 8 rebounds. Alan Griffin, who had 28 points last game, he struggles tonight with just 5 points. He only played, let me scroll over here a little bit, 16 minutes in this game after playing, as you would imagine, most of the past few games here. Marek Dolezaj, rare to see him in such a short stint here in terms of the box score. He didn't score. He picked up 4 fouls, 3 assists, 4 rebounds on the night. Got into early foul trouble, but that opened things up for Jesse Edwards, who has 7 points, 6 rebounds on the night. And the big number here, there's a lot of impressive numbers, Mike, but Kadari Richmond comes in, 7 points, got to the rim a couple of times. The 8 assists, though, is what really stands out here because Kadari showed what Syracuse need. They need a facilitator at the point guard position, and he's going to be knocking on that door loud to get a lot more minutes in these upcoming games than he had been prior to tonight.
Absolutely. I think we saw Kadari Richmond at his best tonight. Whenever he's using the ball to kind of get to the hole and become a facilitator, he had a nice penetration move, and then he found Quincy Guerrier for a wide open dunk there in the second half. That's when he's lethal. He also contributed on the defensive end with steal after steal. They forgot to credit him with a couple there in the first half, but they eventually got it right. But whenever he's able to get out there and kind of be that playmaker for the Orange, and Joe's able to kind of play off the ball, and they're a well-oiled machine when they do that.
It's really what the doctor ordered for Syracuse. They've had so many close games. The grinders against Carolina and Pittsburgh, even that Georgetown game was close for a while. They've only had like 2 or 3 games this year where they could really relax. I mean, the walk-ons got in at the end of the game. You rarely see that in the ACC. The Boston College game earlier this season was the other case of just an easy day at the office, if you will, for the Orange. And Mike, this doesn't really do anything for Syracuse in terms of their NCAA tournament resume. Miami is not a quality win. They're like 80th in the Ken Pom rankings. I think, at the end of the road here, Miami is just not going to end up being a win in that department. But it's a win Syracuse needed for their own psyche. It's a get-right game, as they say. And now it gets really interesting because going down the pike here, and 3 of these next 4 are at home. So that's good for Syracuse. But you got Virginia Tech coming up Saturday. You got Virginia on the road after that. Louisville in the mix on the schedule. And who's the NC State? Last I looked, these are all top 60, 65 Ken Pom teams, Ken Pomeroy rankings, if you wonder what we're discussing out there. And Syracuse still doesn't have that quality win they need that stands out on their tournament resume. And it's like, why are you talking about the tournament in the middle of January? Well, the non-conference slate gave them nothing in terms of opportunities for quality wins. And for the last 5 years, Mike, Syracuse has been sitting there at the end of the season looking to, pad that resume. It's like that kid cramming for the test 10 minutes before it starts, right? Because he didn't study enough. So Syracuse has to start getting some quality wins. And they've got plenty of opportunity coming up here in the next 4 games. And like we mentioned, 3 of those 4 are at home. So at least they have that going for them.
Yeah, I think tonight's win was more about confidence than anything. They needed to, and they won by a lot. They were up by as many as 27. I think this did a lot for their confidence. And going into, we're about to get into the thick of the ACC schedule now with Virginia Tech, Virginia, NC State, Louisville. We're going to see what this team is made of. But tonight, I think the best thing that happened for Syracuse was Dolezaj picking up those early 2 fouls, because it forced Jim Boeheim to insert Jesse Edwards. I know he's been hesitant to do so in the past, primarily because from the outside looking in, it looks like he can't hold on to the ball once he gets at the post. But he did a really good job of rebounding, and he got a couple of buckets in the post. So as long as they're able to kind of make those lineups work with Guerrier, Dolezaj, and now Edwards, we don't know when Barama Sidibe is coming back. I think the Orange will be a pretty good fit.
Looking at some of your comments out there. Appreciate you guys checking in out there. Chris is in Arizona. Love it. Matt says, is there anything really to learn from this game? Miami isn't very good. I think it's what we just said there, Matt, that at least this team knows what this lineup looks like when they have to go to it. It's not a mystery anymore. And like Mike said, Jim was forced into it, and Jim's a pretty stubborn guy when it comes to his lineup, so sometimes that's the case. But I think that's what you get out of it. And Mike, you noted it too. They just need to feel what a win is again, a significant win. You need a sigh of relief. It's been a stressful few weeks for this team on the court, close games. We're finding out about COVID situations now and the pauses, and you just kind of need to shake it off a little bit. And that's, I think, the big thing they got out of tonight, Matt. Let's see. Blake checks in from Houston. All right. Appreciate that. Says, what a difference a half makes. A great bounce back for Syracuse. I think some of the starters were on a 40-minute pace, and it's good to see Boeheim go to the bench for Kadari and Jesse. Kadari was definitely the player of the game. Chris noting that Richmond is a different gear than the other guards. And, Mike, what I like about the guard situation is it can be a positive in that this is what you can do. You can mix things up based on what you need. And tonight, there were plenty of minutes where you had Girard, Boeheim, and Richmond on the floor at the same time. Buddy can play the 3 when needed, when matchups allow, right, against some smaller teams. And we saw some lineups tonight that we've barely seen all year because of it.
Yeah, just interchanging personnel. One thing I do want to point out is Alan Griffin. I think we saw that because Alan Griffin struggled a lot. He came out and airballed his first 2 shots, then he committed a turnover. I don't know if he was in the doghouse tonight, but I think his non-production allowed Syracuse to try some things that they haven't been able to previously.
Andy notes that the Richmond-Joe Girard combo being better is similar to the championship team when Jerry was able to score more, when Billy Edelin played good at point. I certainly remember those days and the mix and match in the lineup there. Claire says, nice to see different players stepping up. Matt saying it's interesting to watch Boeheim continue to search for bench minutes. Braswell got some run earlier, but that's diminished. Richmond played early, less for a few games back tonight, and now Edwards getting more minutes. Robert Braswell has tailed off in terms of minutes the past few games. We haven't seen Woody Newton at all. And Jim has hinted that the COVID pause affected him, Mike, in terms of minutes, in terms of, being in shape. I don't know if he had it as well. I mean, we're learning tonight that Joe and Buddy had it. Maybe there's more cases of people that were positive and affected by it on the team. But I'm surprised based on what we know, if there's something we don't know that could affect this conversation, certainly, bear that in mind. But I'm surprised we didn't see those two start to get some minutes, especially, as you said, Syracuse is up 20, 22 points, and it's time to get the bench some minutes to just get them back in the flow of things.
Yeah. Before this pause, Woody Newton was playing really well for Syracuse. He was really good on the inside as far as defense and rebounding. It gave Syracuse an extra big that it could use instead of playing Dolezaj 40 minutes a game like it's been doing the previous two games before tonight.
Joe notes that there's been some hush-hush on Barama. Maybe he's done for the year. Keep putting Jesse and play Richmond and Braswell. Now, Barama did warm up before the game. Frank Anselm, who's also been on a bit of a pause here for the past couple of weeks, and Jim Boeheim saying last week that he's out at least another 2 weeks. But they did warm up before the game in that, kind of pre-warm-up, not the usual warm-ups where you're going through layup lines and everything. So I don't know what to take from that, Mike. If Barama was truly out for the year, he wouldn't be on the court at all. I mean, maybe they're still trying some things out. It's been noted by Jim that he's just in pain. He can't practice. Arthritis may be an issue there. So it's speculation at this point with Barama, but the key thing is he's not practicing. And it's going to take him, I can't even put an estimate on it, how many practices to get back in the flow of things and then feel comfortable playing. See, and that's the trade-off, Mike. As good as Jesse looked tonight, he's going to struggle. Okay, he's going to get pushed around by some bigger teams. And Virginia Tech and Virginia notably, who are both teams that are physical and can push you around. You need Barama Sidibe to be at your best in the paint. You just do. And right now, he's just not available to this team.
Yeah. I'm not sure what they're going to do without him going forward. They've managed to stay afloat so far. They haven't gotten the quality wins that they've needed, but they're at least in the winning column. I'm not sure what it's going to take to get him back. I don't know what he's going through, but Syracuse definitely needs to get him back before the season comes back.
John Bolajak is another option there, and what Jim has said all along about him is he's too small to get in there. When it's interesting, our colleague Mike Waters and I were discussing this on the radio earlier Tuesday afternoon. John Bull is, I think, about the same height as Marek, if not a little shorter, and he weighs more than Marek. So I don't know what too small means. I just don't think Jim thinks he's ready to play, which is fair. I mean, we don't get to see practice. I'll take your word for it on that. But all I heard leading up to tonight was Jesse wasn't ready. And Jesse, while he has his faults and has to get better at certain things, you brought up the handle is one thing in particular that I think makes Jim nervous because he doesn't want him to turn the ball over. But I guess we don't know until we see it. And there's another guy that didn't play at all down the stretch with Syracuse up big. So certain things Jim Boeheim is going to hang on to, and we just kind of have to take his word for it, right? But too small, I don't know if that's it. Not ready, I guess would be a better way to describe it. Chris said Edwards played well, but he had no game spinning away from the basket, but a good stroke from the line. Our friend and colleague Donna DeToda made a good point, Mike, in that when Jesse kind of comes out of his spin move, comes off the screen, he's always got his hands up. He's always ready to kind of catch and shoot, but his handle isn't quite there. So it's a trade-off, but he does play hard and he does hustle. But I think Chris made an interesting point there.
I think moments like these give those players that haven't played the experience they need and the confidence they need going forward. One thing about it, if you don't get in the game, you don't get those experiences, you'll never be ready. So I think Boeheim just has to take a chance, trust that this is an unorthodox season, and allow those players to play and get those minutes they need. Because
I agree.
Everyone's granted an extra year.
I agree. And he was forced into it with Marek, but with Allen, he made a quick decision to get him out of there. And Jim has noted this a few times this year, to his credit, in that Allen kind of wears his heart on his sleeve. When he starts to struggle, he really starts to struggle, right? The other game on Saturday, complete opposite. He gets on a roll and you can't take him out of the game because, as they once said in Animal House, forget it, he's rolling, right? Just let him go. Not the case tonight. Made that quick decision, made that quick lineup change. Now we'll see if he'll do that if his hand's not forced with foul situations or whatever the case may be. Because, look, Kadari Richmond's got to get bigger minutes in this game. Tonight showed that you can mix up the lineup, get everybody out there that you need. But to be fair, there's going to be matchups and lineups in the ACC where you can't be as creative as you were tonight. Miami was at one point, we gave the final numbers a couple minutes ago. They were 1 of 15 at one point from 3-point range. Isaiah Wong for Miami had 30 points against Louisville the other night. And Louisville shot 3 of 20 from 3-point range in that game. Whereas Syracuse, it was the opposite. They started slow, but then hit some threes, got rolling. Miami couldn't hit threes, and that's all she wrote. So every game tells a different tale. But the important thing is, as we mentioned, Mike, that Syracuse has key players on its bench now that have minutes banked in their head that they can play quality minutes. And there's another thing I wanted to say before I forget about Jesse. Boeheim mentioned after the game that Alan Griffin, the coach, not the player now, has been working with Jesse just on, running after practice, trying to stay in some sort of game shape because he wasn't getting game minutes. Tonight he got those important game minutes and knows and can feel that and doesn't have to run after practice to simulate a game. He got in a game tonight.
Yeah, that's true. And one more thing I wanted to point out. I was in the post-game Zoom with Miami coach Jim Larinaga, and he had no answer when reporters asked him questions about shooting that poorly from 3-point. He clearly just said, we're not that good against the zone. We're good against teams that play man-to-man. We're good against teams that make twos and shoot layups, but we just don't have the personnel to battle that zone.
And they actually got a couple of shooters back tonight as well that weren't available in the last game.
Yeah, he said if you look at last week's game, Joe Girard played like Rich Kelly from Boston College, who lit them up for 7 3-pointers last week.
By the way, Jim Larinaga and Jim Boeheim, if they weren't standing next to each other before the game started, like they get mistaken for each other a lot. And
you couldn't tell who was who.
You really can't. But with them side by side, like you and I are side by side on this show, it's like, oh, they are 2 different people. So at least we confirmed that tonight. That's a good thing. All right, Mike, I'll tell you what, we'll wrap it up there. Thank everybody for watching us tonight from wherever you were. Just a reminder that we do put this on YouTube on the Syracuse Orange Sports YouTube page. I embed that on my recap on syracuse.com if you do miss this live. But we are here live after every Syracuse basketball game. We'll get back at it on Saturday, Syracuse and Virginia Tech. That's a noon start, so we'll be with you after that game. But I would encourage everybody out there to really not only read all our coverage from this game, but my man Mike Curtis here is going to be right back at it Thursday. The Syracuse women's basketball team taking on number 1 Louisville. Big game Thursday night, 9 o'clock. So look for our coverage on that on Friday. But the next time we'll be with you here on Syracuse basketball postgame Saturday afternoon after the Orange take on the Hokies. Thanks to our friends at Krause Health. We'll talk to you on Saturday afternoon. Enjoy the rest of your week, everybody.